Okay, I first want to start this year with a little bit of feedback from last week's year. It was actually 2 weeks ago. So someone emailed me, says the Mifsim discussion is very interesting. Here's something I noticed. All the miracles after creation are of the following form. Hashem tells someone to do something, and then the miracle happens. They're not done by the person. Rather, Hashem tells the person what to do, and then that thing happens. This is always until Eliyahu Novi. He does miracles by himself. I have no idea what this means. Thank you again. Okay, I don't either know what this means. As we'll see, or anybody knows from learning Sefer Malachim, the Talmud of Eliyahu Navi Elisha, the Mifsim there are even more mind-blowing than what happened by Eliyahu Navi himself. Now, it's very interesting because with all the Nevi'im, we know the Gemara says that there were as many Nevi'im kiflaim ki yetzim Mitzrayim, but only a Nevuah that was Hutzrach Aladeris was Nichtav. There were double the amount of Nevi'im than there were the people that left Egypt, meaning Shishim Riba, 600,000 men, between the ages of 20 and 60. So there was at least double that. So that's, double that would mean 1,200,000 Nevi'im over the span when Nevuah existed in Klal Yisrael. Now, only a Navi that was necessary, only a Nevuah that was necessary for future generations to teach them something was written down. So, Nevuah mitzad itself, a person getting onto that level of dveikus and, having a mara, having a chazoin, the different lashonis and the different madregis of the different Nevi'im had. We have no idea what these people had, what kind of nevuahs that they had. And as we'll see, hopefully as we go through Nach, I know it's taking a very long time, but I guess somebody will have to be patient somewhere. And, we're going to go through the sugi, so we're going to see the different levels of nevuah. Let's say it says by Yeshaya that he was Raya Bas Baklaria HaMe'ira. So obviously there's a spectrum of what it means as Baklaria HaMe'ira, because we know the Pasuk of Chomer says that there's nobody greater than Moshe Rabbeinu. Now, it's very, very interesting how the different Nevi'im act in regard to the Nevuah itself. Meaning, we have a concept, Ramban talks about it in Chumash, and there's a pasuk in Divrei Yomim that points at it. A pasuk in Treyasar that points to that as well, and that is the Ramban says in Chumash there's something called a Pel Demyani. That means that there's a physical act that the Navi does that is a remez. It brings about, it's like a sign that he does, and that brings about the physical, that brings down, so to speak, that nevuah, that makes it happen. What's interesting about Yeshua ben Nun is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu ran the milchamas, as we'll see throughout the Sefer. It's a fascinating thing. You would imagine that Yeshua was the one that's fighting the war, so he's going to be sitting with, his advisors and his people, trying to figure out how to fight the wars, but it ends up being very much not like that. It ends up being that HaKadosh Baruch Hu just, takes control and tells them where to go, tells them how to stand, tells them where to, basically, shows them how to hold the gun and tells them when to shoot. I'm looking for the pasuk here in Hosea. There's a pasuk that refers to how the nevuahs worked. Okay, I'm not seeing the pasuk. I'm looking inside now. I'm not seeing it, but V'dibarti ala neviim. Here it's in Hosea Perek Yud Beis pasuk Yud Aleph. V'dibarti ala neviim v'anochi chazoin herbeisi u'yad haneviim adama. So the Mefarshim speak out. What does it mean? V'dibarti al haneviim. So Rashi learns the pashtus is lohechiach eschem, to give you musar lahachzor eschem lamutav. U'biyad haneviim adama. Rashi says nereisi lekem b'chamar dumiyos. V'varacha adam lehem devarai al yidei meshalim k'dei liyashem al shemeim. Which is a big debate. In the Rishonim already, there's different shittas and in the Achronim about what we're reading the psukim. Let's say in Hosea and Yecheskel, even in the Ksuvim is different madregas of nevuah ruach. It's more ruach hakodesh referred to in Chazal. But the concept is, what are these words that we're reading? Are these the words that the Navi heard or saw? Or these are the words that the Navi put into writing after the fact, when he was writing over the experience that he had? Nevuah was a tremendous experience. There was a lot of mavsim. Again, there were a lot of mavsim that were playing out together with the Nevuah. Some of them were directly related to the concept of the Nevuah. Like Makol Shoked on Yeroya by Yirmiyah, and the Sir Habasar over there by Yirmiyah. Yecheskel was busy with bread and lying on his side for X amount of days. Hosea is busy with the Isha Zaina, whether that means literally or like the Gemara says it's referring to Klal Yisrael, because they're being mizana from the derech of they're going off the derech of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But either way, Al Kapanim, each Navi has his signon, as the Gemara says, Ein Shnei Neviim Esnabim B'Signon Echad. But I feel that it's correct to say that the Mavsim and the Nisim were a chelik of the Nevuah itself, meaning when we lost the Madreg of Nevuah, we lost these types of things as well. Meaning Agam, which would make it seem like that the things are related directly to that concept of Nevuah. I'd be curious, I didn't check, but I'd be curious. There's a Sefer, Chesed LaAvram. It's from the great-grandfather of the Chidar, Avram Azulai. It's a tremendous work, and he goes through different, basically the Hishtalshelis Hadoros, and how the Anhag of HaKadosh Baruch Hu changed. For example, when there was a Beis HaMikdash, when there wasn't a Beis HaMikdash. And he goes through, and he explains the different ideas of, let's say, transitioning from a world of Moshe Rabbeinu to a world of Eretz Yisrael with Yeshua ben Nun. It's more of a Kabbalistic work, but I believe that he would shed some light into this concept of what the idea of the different types of mavsim that the Nevi'im are playing around with, that are playing out, we should say. But shkoyach for reaching out, and everybody else should feel free to reach out with questions or comments as well. If there's any other ideas that people have that we should discuss in the shiurim, or any questions about the Mahalach and the shiurim, whatever it is, feel free to reach out. You can send me email to easyweitzner.com at gmail.com, or on the podcast itself. You can write in the comments on the YouTube or on the Spotify. It has welcome for comments there as well. And if you're on the WhatsApp group, you can respond in a WhatsApp. And if you're on the other types of social media, you can do that as well. Okay, Ad Kan, the Ha'ara. Now let's go weiter in Sefer Yeshua. We're mamish nearing the end of the first parak. It's getting exciting. Baruch Hashem, Torah has been exciting throughout. But let's discuss Pasuk Yud Zayin, Parak Aleph, Pasuk Yud Zayin, what's going on over here. Kasher Shemanu al Moshe nishma Eilicha. The same way we listen to Moshe, we're going to listen to you. Rak Yeye Hashem Elikecha imach kasher haya Moshe. Only if Hashem, our God, is going to be with you, Hashem, your God, is going to be with you like He was with Moshe. So obviously, why is it contingent on the fact that we're only going to listen to you if you're on the Madreg of Moshe, which we're going to discuss. The first thing I want to mention is a medrash called Medrash Pisron Torah. So you'll ask me, you'll never heard of it. Well, you probably didn't. But Baruch Hashem, today we have uncovered and discovered so many lost Svarim, Midrashim, even Yerushalmi Kachim, which maybe we'll talk about a different time. But Medrash Pisron Torah, I actually read up on it a little bit, what it is. It's not clear who it comes from. It's written by a Rav Hai or a Rabbeinu Hai. The person who published it with Zichron Aaron in the beginning of the Medrash, so he brings his whole his whole research into it about what it's from or what it's all about, and he brings a whole bunch of questions that he asked Reb Chaim Kanievsky about this Medrash. Reb Chaim actually quotes it in Orchos Yosher. Reb Chaim actually quotes this Medrash twice. The person's ha'or is that Reb Chaim doesn't call it Pisron Torah, but Reb Chaim calls it both times Medrash Pisron Torah. What's interesting is that it's a medrash that says things that we don't have in midrashim elsewhere. which is interesting, meaning that it's from some Rav Hai. Rav Chaim says he's not sure if it's Rav Hai going or some other kind of Rav Hai. But either way, Shtei Dart in the Medrash Pisan Torah, Rav Chaim looked at it as a very acceptable Medrash without too many questions. So the Medrash Pisan Torah in Parshas Dvarim says the following. It says, Vayomer Hashem al Yeshua re'einu sati. Hashem said to Yeshua, you'll see that I gave. It's a pasuk later on. Lefisha Yisrael Amrim Yeshua. Why is this? Because the Klal Yisrael said to Yeshua, Kachol asher Shemanu al Moshe nishma Eilicha. The same way we're going to listen to Moshe, we're going to listen to you. Ein Mosai, when is that? Rak yeh Hashem l'kecha imach. Only if Hashem, your God, is with you. Amar le HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to him, Chayecha, shehayoim ochel gadelcha be'enei kol Yisrael. Today, I will raise you up in the eyes of all of Klal Yisrael. Re'esha kol masha nasa l'Moshe kein nasa l'Yeshua. Many things, everything that happened to Moshe also happened to Yeshua. Hey, how did it play out? L'Moshe nemar shal nalech me'raglecha. Moshe was told to take off his shoes. Moshe bana mizbeach, shenema v'yed Moshe mizbeach. Yeshua bana mizbeach. And Moshe built a mizbeach, and Yeshua built a mizbeach. Shenema az yibana Yeshua mizbeach, as yibana Yeshua mizbeach. Yeshua also built a mizbeach. The sun stopped. The Cham and the Levana stops for Moshe, and we know that Yeshua also Hemed Cham and Levana. Shenema shemesh b'given doim. Moshe karas hayam. Moshe split the sea, the Yam Suf. Yeshua kar Yarden. Yeshua split the Jordan River. Moshe hoichiach es Yisrael. Moshe gave teichacha Musar to Klal Yisrael. Shenema elah hadvarim. Yeshua hoichichan. Yeshua also gave them Musar. Now, this is kedai to point out because we mentioned in an earlier shir that when he was talking to Bnei Gad and Reuven, he doesn't say from himself. He says that Ki'ilu, I'm just reminding you what Moshe Rabbeinu said. So it wasn't a strong kind of teichacha, which was a ha'ara that we mentioned previously. But al kapanim, either way, we find that later Yeshua gives them teichacha. Shenamar lo yisuchlu labed es Hashem kelkim kedoshim hu. L'Moshe nemar re'eh hachilois yites lefanecha, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to give the leadership to him, and Klal Yisrael is going to be listening to him. Yeshua nemar re'eh nosati b'yadecha. And by Yeshua it also says that re'eh, that you'll see that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to guide you in everything that you do. Davar achar. Another zach that the Medrash says, "Be'ezah schus haya HaKadosh Baruch Hu b'Yeshua, kshem shaya Moshe." What schus was it that HaKadosh Baruch Hu was with Yeshua the same way that HaKadosh Baruch Hu was with Moshe? Shelezos min ha'Torah kol yamav. He never stepped away from the Torah his entire life. Shenemar layomer sefer ha'Torah hazeh. He was never moved away from the sefer ha'Torah. Uminayin shaya omal ha'Torah. And how do you know that he wasn't just Shelezos? He never left his seat, but he was taka lamden and he was taka harving and learning. Shenemar u'mesharsa Yeshua ben Unar liyamish b'teicha haya. And it says that Yeshua ben Nun was Mesharis Moshe, meaning that he was a Talmud of Moshe, that he was willing to take everything that Moshe had to offer. And liyamish b'teicha haya, he never stepped away from the oil of learning, the oil of Torah. Lefikach ksiva yeh Hashem es Yeshua. Therefore Hashem was with Yeshua, meaning that there was a kiyum of the pasuk of Rak yeh Hashem l'kecha. I mean, they're saying it al Tanai, that it's only going to be if Hashem Elkeich is with you. The Medrash says that the Tanai was Taka Mekuyim, and the Yehi Hashem is Yeshua. Okay, that's number one. Number two, it's kedai to mention that there's a great sefer on Navi called Minchas Yehuda. I didn't get a chance to go do a whole biography and a whole research on it, but it's from a Kadmon. It could be at the end of the Rishonim, early Achreinim. See, he writes like this. He has two Pirushim. One is more Ader Chapshat, one is a little more Noita towards side. So he says, Nishma Nekayim Devrei Moshe Shenav Chalutzim. It's not enough that we're going to listen and be Mekayim, the words of Moshe Rabbeinu, that we're going to cross over the Yarden armed to go fight for the rest of Klal Yisrael. Meaning that we're going to listen to you just like we listen to Moshe. It's not different at all. They said to Yeshua, if you don't want us to go, we won't go. If you don't want to give us an achla, you could change everything. They basically told him that we're willing to listen to you no matter what you say, even if you change everything that Moshe Rabbeinu said. Now, we know that Yeshua would never change anything, and that's going to be, we spoke about that previously, and again, we're going to talk about it in Pasuk Yud Ches. What exactly was Yeshua able to be Mechadish if he did? Because L'maisa, we know that even though he wasn't Be'etzem Mechadish Halachas, but he made Tanoim in Mitzvahs Yishuv Eretz Yisrael to make it easier and make it more convenient for people to live an easier lifestyle in Eretz Yisrael. So again, it's not mitzvahs that are counted in the Tarek mitzvahs, but upon him he established many halachas, which we'll get to hopefully soon. Hainu, he says that they accepted the Hag of Yeshua 1000%, that even if there were going to be changes in the Tanai that Moshe Rabbeinu made, they were willing to listen. And it's Ken Zion that Yeshua could have changed things. So we know that he did it. But the concept is that the reason why they were so willing to accept everything that Yeshua did is because, as we spoke last week, he was a direct continuation of Moshe Rabbeinu to a fault. And there was nothing different in a very strong sense. And Yeshua had none of his personal, had no personal gain in this, without any pnius, without any, he wasn't personal about it. Like the Gemara says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu was maskim l'daitoi, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu was maskim to Moshe Rabbeinu, and we see that by Yehi Hashem is Yeshua, that was a clear fact that there was no objection to that. And they came to be Mesharis Yeshua. They made this Tanai that his Maisim should be L'Shem Shemayim, Bilvad, Acha Hashem Yaskim, Al Kol Ma Sheyasem Idaito, Kasher Hoya and Moshe V'zes Chusam Lahasnos. Meaning, what right, he's really asking a kasha. He says, Be'etzem, what right, this is just going to explain what he said previously. What right did Bnei Gad and Bnei Reuben have to say, hey, listen, we're only going to listen to you if Hashem is going to be with you like by Moshe Rabbeinu. Which right, because you're not Moshe Rabbeinu. You could say, well, you're a nice guy, but you're not Moshe Rabbeinu. What's the shot over here? Right? But the idea is, again, he had no personal gains, he had no personal agendas over here. And they came to him and they said, we know that you're doing everything 100% L'Shem Shemayim, and we know that everything that you're going to do, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to be masking to. Meaning the same way that HaKadosh Baruch Hu was masking l'daita shel Moshe, if you do something, you decide to make changes in something, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will be masking to that also. And because they knew that with such a clarity, without any doubt whatsoever, that's what gave them the right to talk to Yeshua ben Nun like this. Even though Ba'etzem they shouldn't have spoken, so what are you making a Tanai in what he said? Just do what he said, right? This is Kasher Hoya and Moshe, that you'll be in the Madrega of Moshe Rabbeinu, that you're not Mesiach Das from HaKadosh Baruch Hu for a second. And like we saw before in the Medrash, that he was Loi Mosh, Loi Zoz B'nat Torah, and he was constantly being Omal Bat Torah, and being that that's the case, he was Kol Kulei Rangaton and Torah and Ruchnias, Memela, that's what gave him the right, that's why he had the promotion to be the one. Obviously he was greater than everybody else, to be the one to take them into Eretz Yisrael. And Memela, that's the pshat and why he was the one to conquer Eretz Yisrael, and to go fight these wars. And that Hashem really did it for him. That's the greatest part of this whole story. The greatest part of the whole story is that Hagam, Yeshua could have sat down and made strategies with the militaries and defense and Hagan Semaisa, but we see that Hashem was his defense minister. Hashem says, listen, go here, stand here, ambush them there. L'maisa, we spoke last week that it did happen, unfortunately. There were tragic stories that happened, not too many, but even the loss of one life is a tragedy. But Be'etzem, for the most part, they were tremendously matzliach, and we'll get to talk about that in the proper time. The pasuk says in Parashas Vayelech, "Vayidaber Moshe be'oznei kol kahal Yisrael es divrei hashira hazois ad tuma." So the question is, what does it mean ad tuma? That Moshe spoke these words in the ears of the entire congregation of Klal Yisrael, the words of this shira ad tuma, until their completion. the concept is it's from Ramesh David Valley, who's a Talmud Chaver the Ramchal. It says unbelievable terrorists on the whole Tanakh. So in Parshas Vayelech he writes, very, very similar to what we said before. Mashenemer Ad Tumam, the concept when they said, when Moshe said Ad Tumam, is being Merames, that these words that he said were very, very helpful for Klal Yisrael. And there was no sveikis in anything, meaning that Klal Yisrael accepted Moshe Rabbeinu 1,000% with a perfect shleimus. When they saw that Moshe Rabbeinu is appointing Yeshua to be the next manig after him, they said, Moshe said, and nothing to talk about. We can't question that. And like the Gemara says, they didn't rebel against anything that Yeshua said his entire life. Why? Because they looked at it because they looked at it as if Moshe was alive and with them. Because they said to Yeshua, they said that Klal Yisrael spoke this out. This was said by Klal Yisrael. But Kasher Amru, Kain Osu. What Klal Yisrael said, that's what they kept. And B'schar Zois, because of this accepting of Yeshua ben Nun as the manik, that's why they were Zeicha to Yarshin and to get Eretz Yisrael. And he says weiter, Faharesha ha'ilu devar shal Moshe lahasmim es poya oretz, ulahashlam es tikunam, ulahagiyam alateva hamzumenes lahem. When they said this, when Moshe Rabbeinu said Ad Tumam, with a perfect faith, they believed everything. So this helped the perfection, so to speak, for the generation of Baya Aretz to be mashlim the tikkun, and to bring them to the highest, that allowed them, this gave them the capability to be masig all the hasogis that Eretz Yisrael had to offer, and what Yeshua ben Nun had to offer with that in Eretz Yisrael. Because the Chacham is very dependent on how he hears things. So when the pasuk says Atumam, what does it mean? Till they're marviach, until they grow to the perfect tmimus of all the madregas that they can be masik. The concept is of the Shiras Hazinu, the concept of this is that the segula of this shira is to be able to go b'derech tamim. And he writes that the Rambam writes already that there were many congregations that were noyik to say the Shiras Hazinu every day. Instead of saying Az Yashir. And there are kehillas that even say both of them. He says, but now it's widespread and accepted for everybody to say that Oz Yashir, the Shir Sayam, and you shouldn't change it. If a person wants to be Zeicha to this Tmimos, of following the Torah b'Tmimos, maybe to even get to the Madrega of Tamim Tiyam Hashem Lekecha, according to this, it would sound like that by reading the Shiras Hazinu Atumam means that they accepted everything that was written in there, to be able to be masig the madrega of Tmimos. And he says sheyesh l'kraisa b'shah acheres, that you should read it at a different time, not during tefillah, to be able to be marviach, to be able to get as much as you can to squeeze out the schoolless as much of the parashas Shiras Hazinu, v'ata kisvu lechemes hashira hazois atumam, with all the madrega shaykh to squeeze out of it. And he writes in Bayos on this pasuk in Sefer Yeshua, he says, Ki seif ar hashemesh u'shemeir b'yareach. The light that the moon is lit up with is the light of the sun. Meaning the sun is Moshe Rabbeinu, and the yareach is Yeshua ben Nun. Mechabed l'matrei nisim epnei kvei hamelech. You're mechabed the queen because of the kvei hamelech. U'bilvad she'yeh gilui u'mefursim oir hayichud she'yishra lo k'moshe yishar al Moshe Rabbeinu. There's a certain Hasharas Hashchina that existed on Moshe Rabbeinu, and Klal Yisrael says, listen, we're willing to be mechabed you, we're willing to accept you, but I'll deny that the Gilui Ha'or, that was Shaira and Moshe Rabbeinu should dwell on you as well, in that same way, that it should be Golim before, so that everybody will know that this is Yeshua ben Nun. And when the pasuk says, when they said to Yeshua, Rak Yasham lekecha imach, kasher haya Moshe, meaning even though the etzem he was not as great as Moshe Rabbeinu, this is what the rak over here is coming to be Mamayit. He says there's no suffix in the world whatsoever that Yeshua ben Nun was not Moshe Rabbeinu, but there was something very, very similar with the Hashras Hashchina that Yeshua had and Moshe had as well. The Hashras Hashchina of Moshe was as strong and as bright as the sun, and the Madreg of Yeshua was as beautiful as the moon. The people in Klal Yisrael that knew the difference, that were able to see the difference and be margish the difference, they were the ones that were machnia. Because Yeshua in his generation is just like Moshe in his generation. Meaning that in every generation the leaders are not going to be as great as the previous generation, but you have to accept it. And we know from our times and previous dairas in very recent history that when a new Rosh Hashiva, a new Manig, a new somebody takes over, many times it's not the same. It's a different personality, it's a different mitzvahs. But those that were able to see the Hashras Hashchina of Moshe Rabbeinu, and they were able to see the Hashras Hashchina and the Yichud that was Sheira and Yeshua ben Nun, and Hagam that they knew the difference and saw the difference and felt the difference, those are the ones that were Machnia. That's a true gadlus of that door. But this is all al Tnai, b'yois Hashchina Sheira lov mislabeshes b'fiv. And as we spoke in Pasuk Yud, that really when Yeshua would talk to Klal Yisrael, all of Klal Yisrael would get it subliminally in a certain sense, in a certain way. Okay. Adkan from Ramat Valley on what we're going to see over here. Kichol, Asher Shemanu al Moshe. Kichol is Gematria 70. The two Chavs is 40 and the Lamed is 30. That makes 70, which is Keneged the Sanhedrin, which has 70's Canaan. And that's the big Shiloh that we're going to be discussing, is what was the capacity that Yeshua had, right? And he was appointed by Moshe Rabbeinu, and there was no sveikus about it, like we saw in the Rambam at the end of Hilchas Yisrael Torah, Perkut Halacha Hey, that if you have one Navi that's made on another Navi, so then that Navi himself doesn't need to do an Isar Maipis to prove his Nevuah. If you look in the, and it's just interesting Maramokim, doesn't mamash have shaykhs to this Inyan, but al kapanim it says in Parshas Pekudei in Parak Mem Pasuk Yud Aleph, Mashachta es akiyar ve'eskana. You should anoint the kiyar and the kind of kiddush side. You should be mekadosh it. So you look in the Targum Yonison over there. It says v'tarba yas kiyara. You should smear the kiyar v'yas b'sisay v'tikdash yasay mitul Yeshua meshamshonach rabedis and hedron da'ameh. That, because of Yeshua, you're Meshamish, the Rabbi the Sanhedrin, the leader of the Sanhedrin, the Ameh. The Al Yadai, I see the Arad Yisrael is Palga. He's going to be the one that's going to divide up Eretz Yisrael to Klal Yisrael. Mashiach bar Ephraim, the Nafik Minei. And Mashiach bar Ephraim, Mashiach ben Yosef is going to come from his descendants. The Al Yadai, I see them Beis Yisrael, Lemanatcha Legoygel Siyata B'Seifi Maya. Because Al Yadai, Mashiach ben Yosef, Klal Yisrael is going to be able to fight Goig and his armies at the end of days. It's not an interesting thing that in reference to the Kiyar, it talks about Yeshua ben Nun being the Rosh Sanhedrin and being the ancestor of Mashiach ben Yosef. So Kechol Asher Shemanu al Moshe Kain Nishm'a Elecha. Kain is the same Gematria 70 as well. And the Mefarshim are ma'or that what is the Kain doing over here? What's this word saying? But being that they already said that, being that the fact is that Yeshua ben Nun, that Moshe Rabbeinu was ma'atzel meirucha me'hoidei olav, so then it's Roy, the proper thing to do is to listen to him, as if your mom is listening to Moshe Rabbeinu, keep him hamadabra aleim. Moshe said kach v'kach. Moshe said to listen to Yeshua ad tumim, like we just explained. And that's when it says, Kasher Shomanu el Moshe, it's as if Moshe was talking, we always say, Shechina medaberes b'toch groinoi. That's true by Moshe. But I think we could say over here, if we could coin the new phrase, the Moshe medaber mitoch groinoi shel Yeshua. So we could assume that at this time, when we're going to listen to you, it will be as if we were listening to Moshe Rabbeinu Mamish. Now, they told him like this, and this is really what we said before, which could I repeat, that the same way we're being mishar, meaning we're understanding, our limited understanding is that we're viewing you as Moshe Rabbeinu, we're viewing Yeshua as Moshe Rabbeinu. So you also, meaning you, Yeshua, also have to be the one that it has to be that Hashem is with you the same way He was with Moshe Rabbeinu. Okay. Rak yeye Hashem elkicha imcha. The Metzudah says, "Lenishma Ratzaleimar, Lenishma Eilicha." We're only going to listen to you. Rak kisha yeye Hashem imcha v'lo b'zulaza. We're only going to listen to you if Hashem is with you, and not if Hashem is not going to be with you. And what would happen if Hashem wouldn't be with him? I mean, why is there malkum to assume that Hashem won't be with him? The Psukim and Chumash testify on his Gadlus B'Torah, on his Hasmada. Moshe Rabbeinu testified, gave him, was Netzal Mehoidei Olav, Umeruchai Olav, and there's no reason to question that he wouldn't follow everything 1,000% like Moshe Rabbeinu said, right? Now we'll ask the question the other way around. And even if he's not as great as Moshe Rabbeinu, you still have to listen to him because he's the manik. Meaning saying the only reason why he's the manik is because he's as great as Moshe Rabbeinu. That's definitely not true. Because we know, Eilicha kain alo shebiyamecha, and Eilicha shevet asher yeh biyamecha yiftach b'doirei kishmul b'doirei. But the Malbim says like this, Shezeh vadai sheishmu b'koiloi afilum lo yeh Hashem imar kol kach. Avad, everyone's going to listen to everything that he says, even if Hashem is not going to be with him. But they're going to listen to him. But they're not going to have the tmimos and the shleimus the same way that they had it when they were listening to Moshe Rabbeinu. Meaning that you might have people that are going to be mefakfik and doubt, cast doubt on something that Yeshua said. You'll say, well, is he so chashuv? Do I really have to listen to him? Right? Meaning, people will say, that I'm only going to listen to him if he's as great as Moshe Rabbeinu. L'maisa he's not. L'maisa he's not as great as Moshe Rabbeinu. And people will cast doubt on his hanhaga and on his godless. Which is very interesting because the next pasuk, which Mr. Shem will get to, is Kol shayam respicha l'chol asher titzavenu yumas v'lo yishmas v'recha yumas. That a person who's not going to listen to Yeshua, he's going to get killed. Rak hasak v'emas. The question is why it has to be that way, right? So that might be according to this, meaning that even if it's not going to be as great as Moshe Rabbeinu, but there will be people that are going to that might stand up against it, right? But the Mefarshim over there explain, and as we'll see, that the pshat is that Yeshua was saying this, or the Bnei Gad and Reuven were saying this as a hope that they're going to ensure that they're taka going to listen via star design, and they're not going to be playing games. Meaning that the taka going to accept everything that Yeshua said. Meaning again, it's not easy and it's not so simple, from one day to the next. You had Moshe Rabbeinu yesterday, today you don't have Moshe Rabbeinu, today Yeshua ben Nun. It's a whole different world. But Aval Pikein, as the Ramdu says, or Moshe Valley says, that those people that were able to spot the difference and to understand the difference, meaning that those were the greatest people, they were the ones that were machniyah to Yeshua. But Akapanim, back to the Malbim. The Malbim says that this is vada going to be true, that even if he's not, meaning they're going to listen, he's going to have a following, even if he doesn't listen the same way even if he doesn't listen to everything that Hashem says. But it's not going to have the same starkheit, it's not going to have the same tmimos, the cohesiveness of the chevra, so to speak, is only going to be if he listens to everything that Akash Baruch Hu says. Even if he's not going to be as great as Moshe Rabbeinu. But even this is a shtickle strange, because if this is their time when they're coronating Yeshua, when Yeshua is becoming their melech, when he's becoming their man again, he's becoming their leader, it's very interesting that they'll slip this tonight in. So, Avada, they're going to listen to him. And Avada, we know that they were that the people who saw the difference knew, were able to differentiate between the godless of Moshe and Yeshua. It's very possible. But L'chaira, we could say another pshat over here. That over here, it was a tefillah with this tonight. That they said, we want to listen to you the same way we listen to Moshe Rabbeinu. And we want to give you a bracha, that you should be zeicha to this. That Hashem should be with you the same way he was with Moshe. And with that, not only will we just listen to you, but we will listen to you the same way we listen to Moshe Rabbeinu. And Umemela will have, the tefillah would be for a lot less of a fallout of the people not listening to Yeshua. So, if we're learning like this, that it was a tefillah and it was a bracha, so in this conversation that they're having with Yeshua and the Hemshech HaPasuk also, is Avada, they said, we're ready to accept you. We accept. And the whole reason why we're willing to accept is because we're hoping that you're going to do a good job. And we're davening, and we're hoping, and we're praying that it's taka going to go well. And again, this is also going to be true even if you're not right, and even if we won't listen to you. Because you should still listen to him. It's much more of it's more appropriate in the sense if we say that it was a tefillah than if we say if it was a tanai. Meaning, even though Hashem said earlier in Pasuk Hey, Kasher Hayisi Moshe Imach, meaning Hashem gave a haftacha that he said the same way I was with Moshe, I will be with you, right? That was Hashem talking, but that was Mizrusa Delayla, if you will. But they still needed a tefillah because there's, it's very shaykh that sometimes the chet, people could do averos, and the haftacha can fall apart, and what about this Yisrael Tata? HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not forcing Yeshua onto anybody. That's for sure true. And, it had to come from, a melech. We say this all the time, the difference between a melech and a moshel. A moshel pshat is he's a ruler. It doesn't matter who, it's much more of a dictatorship. You have no say in the matter. He just rules inside Gezunt. A melech comes from the ratzon of the am. It comes from the willingness of the people. And it's much easier to understand what it means that a melech is ma'ached am. He holds the nation together. What it means is because everybody has malchus b'ratzon kiblu aleim. The malchus is the ratzon that everybody is willing, everybody wants, everybody's willing, everybody's on board with this together. But even if it is a tonight, it's going to come out strange because what happened to what Hashem said in Pasuk Hey. But if it's a tefillah, it's much easier to understand it, that it's mutter to daven, even after there's a haftach of nevuah. And the pasuk says in Sefer Dvarim, Anochi Yimach Yeshua. It says Hashem will be with him. And the Sefer Zikr and Sefer says this, Lefi Pashtus Ulashon Tefillah. The Pashtus of the pasuk is that it's Ulashon Tefillah, Shebdikshu Meis Hashem Yisbarach, Yihiratan Sheyeh Yimach. That should be your will, that he should be with you. Amnam Nichlal Gamken Azhara. Shirak Ba'ifin Zeh Yid Yivarach Nishmo. Tzei Maskul Matal Zalenu. Right? It's like the Lashon of Gemara. He came to speak somewhere. It's a Gemara Tendepeya, and he said, "Yehei Rava, that the Ema Milsa." He says, "Yehei Rava, that I should say something and it should be accepted." So that was the Rosh Hashiva speaking to the new crowd that he was addressing. But over here, it was Bnei Gad Bnei Ruvain speaking b'Shem Klal Yisrael. Hopefully, that the entire Klal Yisrael is willing to accept Yeshua as the Melech. But it's not just that they're willing. We're davening a tefillah of, so to speak, long live the king, that that you should listen to everything, that he should have siyata nishmaya doing it, going ahead being the leader, and we should also go along with that, and we should be, in a sense, be zeicha to the concept of malchus b'ratzon kiblu aleim. Im Hashem Elkicha Yeye imach k'moya Moshe shetatzliach b'asher tifna. Right? V'gam yesh loymar, and he also says sheyeh Shem Shemayim shogor b'picha. V'shem Hashem nikra Alecha, Shchinos chashoripach. And that's Hashem Elkicha Yimach. That he should a constant refrain in the mouth of Yeshua should be that he's saying Shem Shemayim should be Shogar B'Fiv. Now it's interesting, this is not for now, but we spoke that one of the Xeris of the Yevanim by the story of Hanukkah was that there weren't allowed to be Maske Shem Shemayim. And, it's an interesting concept. People say Baruch Hashem, Bez Hashem. It's part of the lingo, but it's more than that. There's a concept to it. If we would stop and think about what we're actually saying, it will bring us to a little bit more, we'll be a little more mindful of what we're saying when we're saying Bez Hashem, or Mitzvah Hashem, or Baruch Hashem. It's we say these things for a reason. We want to have HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Shem Shemayim Shogar B'Fiv. And they were hoping that they would have that from Yeshua as well. Okay, I think we'll stop here for now. We'll do Mamshech